Hello friends, welcome back. So in today's tutorial, I will show you how you can code and get the thumbnail of any YouTube video using JavaScript. So after doing this, you can learn how to use JavaScript to download any YouTube thumbnail, and I will also be using responsive CSS so that you can also use this application from your mobile. So in this project, you will learn how to use query selectors, you will learn how to use index of function, and I also covered some responsive CSS. So let's start. So let's start by writing the HTML code. So let's create the index.html, and I'm using emmet. I will be creating a simple HTML structure. So let's start by creating a section, and inside of it I am creating an h2 tag, and let's write download thumbnail. After that, let's create a div. I'm gonna name the class name as URL, and inside of it I'm gonna create another class with title, and let's write enter YouTube URL. Time to add the input element. Before that, let's create a div with class name as field and create the input element with type text, and add a placeholder with enter URL. Reload the page, and let's see how it looks. Now let's add a div element with the class name as preview. This is a part in which we will actually see the image of the YouTube thumbnail. Now add the image tag. I'm also adding a h4 element which will hold the placeholder of the YouTube thumbnail preview. I'm almost done with the HTML. Just let me change the title to, let's add as YouTube thumbnail picker. Now let's add the CSS link, and let's name it as style.css. So let's start with margin 0 and padding 0, and box sizing border box. I will give a simple look. You can modify as per your requirement. So I'm giving a background. I'm giving a reddish background, and let me set the height to 100 VH. The display would be flex, justify content center, align items center. This will be the body, and after that target the section. In section I would have a color of white. Set the width to 400 pixel. Then I will set the text align is centered. The height should be around 350 pixel with border radius of 10 pixels. I'm giving the border radius because I will give a box shadow, and with the box shadow values of 10 pixel, 10 pixel, 21 pixel and 0, and I will give RGB color of black with 0.42 opacity. It's looking very good. Okay. After that, let's target the inner part of the section. First of all, let's target the h2. Set the font size to 30 pixel and the font width to bold. The margin should be 10 pixel auto, and give a text shadow of 2 pixel by 2 pixel with an RGB of black color that we used earlier. This is optional and you can skip this too. For URL, set the margin as 20 pixel by 10 pixel. Then let's target the title and the field classes. So for title, I'm gonna use set the font size to 20 pixel. So for the field class, I'm gonna set a height of 20% and the width should be 100%. Add a margin top of 5 pixel Now let's target the input field. So for the input field, I'm gonna give a width of 100%. Height should be of 100%. Setting the background to a light gray color. Now need to remove the border and the outline. The border should be none and the outline should be none. Now let's add a border bottom of 1 pixel solid FFF1. After that, let's add a padding of 10 pixel by 20 pixel. It's looking good now. Let's add a font size of 15 pixel and a border radius of around 2 pixels is fine. Add a line element after the input. This is optional and you can skip this. Okay, now let's add the style. So .url.field.line. The height should be of 2 pixel. The width should be 100%. Setting a background of black. Transform should be 0. Add transition of 0.4 second is in. I will target this whenever the user is typing something in the input field. So every time the user types something, a black line will appear. So for that I am setting the transform to scale 1. So you see it's working now. I am almost done with the CSS part. Only thing is left is the section in which I will show the image. So for that, let's add the 100% width and let's set the border radius to 2 pixel. Now for height, I am setting it with 160 pixel and giving a margin of 20 pixel by 10 pixel. And let's add a display of flex, align items of center and justify content with center. Give a flex direction of column and set the overflow to hidden. Now I'm gonna give a border. I'm gonna give a dashed border. So for that, add 2 pixel dashed and let the color be white. Okay, then I think I need to remove the width of 200 pixel on the top. This should fix this. Okay, let me change the background to black. It's looking much better than earlier. Comment if you like the earlier design. After that, let me just add the style for the image. For that, I'm gonna add the .preview.thumb, and for the image, I'm gonna just give a width of 100%, and the border radius should be 2 pixels. The CSS is almost complete. Now let's start adding the JavaScript. For that, I am adding the script file as script.js. Let's create a file. So let's start by getting all the selectors. So I need the value of the input. I need the preview block and as well as need the image. So for that, let's create a constant. So I will name it as input URL and the value would be document.querySelector, and I need the class name of .field and the input. After that, I will create another variable for the preview. So same I think I will use document.querySelector and the class name is .preview. Just for the image, so the image is in the preview block only, so I will use preview.querySelector and I will get the class name of image, that is dot thumb. Okay, so I'm done with the selectors. So after that I need to create a function that will actually check the user input. So for that I will only use the input URL, and I will use on key up, and I will use the arrow function. Inside the arrow function I will create a variable, and let it be called URL, and it will have the input URL dot value. Dot value will give us the value in the input field. Now let's open the developer tool and open the console. So let me just print console.log. It's always a good practice to debug and check for errors. Now, okay, I already got an error. We're saying the input.value is not a function. Yes, it's not a function. I need to remove the brackets. Now if I just give the console log, I think it will work. If I give an input, yes, it's now working as expected. Okay, so now I need to add a class. So for that I need to have the preview dot class list dot add, and I will add a class called current. What will this do? Every time a user has given an input, it will have a class called current. So let me just add the CSS block for that, and inside of it I will only use a border, and I will give a border of none. So I will remove the border, and after that I will set the style for the image, that is find the thumb, and I will have a display dot block. Okay, and for the h4 I will just remove the h4, so I'm gonna give a display of none. So what will this do? Every time the user has given an input, I will just remove the preview block, and instead of it I will create the image and I will display the image over there. For purpose I need some URL, so let me just open YouTube and get a video from which I can get the URL. Let me open one random video. Okay, I open this one, and let me just copy the URL. Okay. Now if I can just paste it, and if you can see, this is the unique code that I need to pick. So I need to create a function that will just pick the unique code from the YouTube URL. So this is 11-digit unique code that YouTube gives for every video. Before that I need to check for some patterns, because you know, if you can share a video, YouTube gives a different type of URL. This is the first pattern I got. Then if I just go to the same video and click on share and click the copy button, you can see that the pattern is different, right? But we have the same unique code, just the pattern is different. Okay, so our function should also handle if the user has not given the www. Think of these 4 possible patterns that a user can give his input. Comment below if you know any other patterns that YouTube use. So now let's just start creating the function that will handle all the patterns, and I need to create a common method for that also. So let's start by creating some constants and just define the patterns over there. So for pattern 1 I will copy up to watch, and similarly for pattern 2 I will just remove the www and use the same. For pattern number 3 I will use up to youtube.be. I think this is the common part. And for pattern number 4 I will only add the www. So now we have our 4 patterns. I think this is good. So now we need to create the function that will handle all these patterns. You always write some comments beforehand, because it will help you only to understand why you are doing the code. Write the condition. So I am gonna use url.index of function, and inside of it I will pass the pattern 1, and I will check if it does not equal to -1. This function is similar to Java's .contains. So I will add both pattern 1 and pattern 2 over here with the for function, and inside the if block I will just get the unique code that is coming with the URL. That I will create a new variable. I will call it valid, and I will split the URL into two parts. So for the first pattern, I will take up to this part, and what split will do, it will create an array, and I will take the second part and I will substring with it with 0 and 11, as 11 is the number of characters of the unique ID. So I will have a substring with 0 and 11. So this will pick the unique ID from the URL. Now let's check the console again for the value, if it's coming properly or not. So I will copy one of the URL pattern and paste it in our input field, and yes, you can see that we are getting the 11-digit YouTube ID, so it's working fine. Now we will write a code that will actually get the image. So for that we will create a variable. Just type in this URL, https://image.youtube.com/vi/ I will pass the value of our valid and hqdefault.jpg. Now what this will do, whenever a user will give the input URL, it will split the URL and get the unique ID, and here when you pass the image ID, it will generate the actual image URL. Now let's have a console log and check the URL once. So if I just again paste this URL, you can see that I got the URL. If I open it, yes, I can see the actual thumbnail of the YouTube video came. So it's working fine. Now the last thing that I need to do is I need to set the image in the image tag. We already have the selector for that, and the name of the variable is thumb, and I'm getting the class of .thumb, that is from the image. Now let me just set the value of thumb.src equals to image thumb. Now this will set the image in the image tag, and you can see in the preview block, and yeah, it's working fine. So if we just give the input URL, it will work. So let me check for pattern 2 also. Let me refresh and add that, and yeah, it's working for this also. Okay, now for pattern number 3 and 4, I will do a similar thing. Let me just save some time and copy this part and paste it over here, and just change the pattern 1 to 3 and pattern 2 to 4. And inside the block we'll have a similar lines of code. So let me just copy the above one. The only change we will have in the split condition. So for this pattern, let me just copy up to this part, and similar thing will work. Let me check the pattern number 4. Let me just paste it. It's working too. So now I need to write a condition if any user types a wrong input URL. For that also we need to check. So for that, what I will do, I will just clear the value in source. So thumb.src, I will click to empty value. So what this will do, this will clear the value of the image and will not give us any output. So in addition of this, we also need to clear the current class. For that, I will just copy paste this, and instead of add, I will add remove. So let me check once. Yeah, if working for the correct one, and if I give an incorrect value, this will get defaulted. Again, if I give a correct value, it will show us the image. So this is working fine, and we have a personal YouTube thumbnail picker. Now let's check the responsiveness also for this. So if I click on inspect and click on the mobile settings, this is looking very nice and it's working fine too. So friends, I hope you enjoyed the video, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe our channel so that you get notifications of all our upcoming videos. Thanks again for watching, and happy coding.